Air cooling or water cooling? Which one's better for your PC? Today we'll go into this and more on this episode of Hardware Hub. Now, your first question is probably what's the importance of cooling? Well, to understand cooling, you need to understand what it even does. And PC cooling, it's an important factor in managing your computer's components, making sure that it doesn't overheat or damage hardware. If your PC's not cooled well enough, it can lead to electrical fires, even possibly hardware explosions. It's a very serious deal to make sure your computer stays in a certain range of temperature. With that being said, you want to understand what air cooling and water cooling really is. Air cooling is the process of using a fan and also heat sinks to moderate your temperatures on your computer. Usually, you see this during like light gaming, business work. You'll see a lot of laptops, a lot of basic computers. You'll see a lot of air cooling in most of your generalized PC use. Water cooling is when you use liquid, usually not water, but you could use water, usually liquid coolant, um, that runs through pipes, and these pipes run into your CPU, your GPU, your memory, um, and just other components in your computer to make sure that they stay cool. Usually, you don't see this in a normal computer. Usually, this is for more extensive use of computers. Usually, you see this in, a extensive gaming setup, or if someone's, wanting to render something or animate something, or they're streaming, very extensive uses of your computer. So the question is, um, what's even the point in water cooling if air cooling is good on its own? Why would you spend more money on cooling your computer with water if one, it might be more dangerous because you're using water, and two, it's more expensive and takes more time? What would be the point in using water cooling? So we're going to go into the pros and cons of that. For our first little introduction into water cooling, it's much quieter than air cooling. Air cooling usually sits around 35 to 50 decibels, usually on that higher range, whereas water cooling usually sits under 30 decibels, which is much quieter than a normal air cooled PC. I can confirm this myself as an owner of an air cooled PC. Um, Anytime your computer starts to think that the whatever it's running is pretty extensive, it gets pretty loud. You usually hear it in the background. It can become a distraction. And for people who don't need distractions, water cooling might be an option. Or someone who, they're doing a lot of streaming or recording, and their PC's kind of loud because of the air cooling, water cooling might be an option for you so that you don't hear those fans in the background. A water cooler keeps your computer much cooler than a air cooler. It can lead to healthier components long term because it's less strenuous on your components. So usually a water cooled PC will last you longer if properly managed. It should last you longer than an air cooled PC because it's just not as strenuous on your hardware when it's not running at such high temperatures. Um, Another really great addition to entering the water cooled scene is the amount of customization and decoration that you can have in a water cooled PC. You see a lot of beautiful PCs air cooled, and they're very beautiful, but the designs and the customization in water cooling that you can get, there's many different types of pipings. You can use different colored water. There's many different types of water cooling um, processings. There's so much customization that can go into water cooling, and it's very interesting. And I definitely take the time to look into it if water cooling is something that you're looking to do. It's a very interesting process. Um, Another really great pro for water cooling cooling is it really, really helps with those extensive loads on your PC. It can help your PC run much faster while doing heavier processes. Usually, you'll see a air-cooled PC reach around 175 watts when running extensive processes. And not many people are going to know what that means, but that's just how much energy your computer is letting out. And usually you're going to see about 175 with an air cooler, and you're going to see around 167, more or less, depending on the air cooler you purchase, or how strenuous whatever you're doing is. But then, as you can see, it's about 6-7 less watts than what you'd be seeing on the air cooling, and that might not seem like a lot, but that can help a lot with your computer, and it can help a lot with managing your wattage. And it's really good to make sure your wattage is just as low as possible, especially for those people who are very reliant on their PC. You can also see that temperature-wise, they're relatively the same, but you can tell that, especially when the PC is more idle, you can see that a water-cooled PC sits around the cooler range, whereas the air cooling, it's a little bit more hotter than the water-cooled. Now that we know about all these pros, all these good things, a water-cooled PC is much cooler, a lot more decoration, it's much quieter. What are the cons? What's the downsides? Well, a water-cooled PC can be way more expensive than an air-cooled PC, to the point where a lot of people just can't do it, just cannot handle it. Me, myself, I'm one of those people. I'd love to go water, but the price to get into that is so expensive that there's just no incentive. There's no reason I should go to that price. Your usual water cooling unit sits around $100 to $500 is what you're looking at. Cheaper range of 100, and your more expensive, better running water coolers looking around $500, which is just unrealistic for most people, especially after buying their PC, buying the components, buying your monitor, your mouse, getting all that stuff. After all that, it's a lot of money to go purchase a water cooler. Whereas your air cooling, it can be around $20 to $100, looking at what you're looking at, and that's not bad at all. It's very flexible for people who can't really afford the basic water cooling, or even more expensive. So that in its own could be a reason that water cooling is just off the option for you, and that's why you might want to jump to air cooling. Another really bad downside of having a water cooler is the maintenance. You need to do research when purchasing a water cooler because of how much maintenance goes into it. You have to keep it clean. You have to know how to replace the water. Just the installation itself. It can take a lot of knowledge just to know what to get for a water cooler. The amount of knowledge that it takes to know how to install or to know what to purchase might in its own be a reason for you not to get a water cooler. You got to know what hardware to purchase that goes with the water cooler. Some hardware might not be compatible with the water cooler you purchased, and that can be a very big issue, because then now you got a water cooler and it doesn't work with your PC. Those are some cons of having one, and some pros. And after hearing the pros and the cons, you're either thinking water cooling's not for me. I don't want to do water cooling. That's not my thing. That's just too much research, too much knowledge. It's too expensive. Or you might be one of those people who are like, water cooling sounds like a really great idea. I do use my computer a good bit, and it is a little loud, and I do want to make sure that my computer lasts as long as possible and make sure it's as healthy as possible. And this is something I'm willing to look into. Let's say you want to look into getting a Cooler Master or a Corsair liquid cooler. Those are two really great options. I would recommend a few YouTube channels, maybe look into Linus Tech Tips. Look for somebody who can get more in depth onto what specific cooler might be best for you. You can look at different stores. If you're looking for budget ones, I would look on eBay. There's plenty of different places to go check out and find a good liquid cooler for cheap. But if you're one of those people who want to get, a really good one, actually, something that you might be able to trust, I would definitely look into a Cooler Master or the Corsair, like I said. For my final verdict, I would say that water cooling is great for people who can handle it and can maintain it, but it's not worth it if you're not willing to do the research. Water cooling is a beautiful customization feature. It's amazing for keeping your PC cool. It's great for keeping healthy components. But if you aren't willing to do the research and you're not willing to clean the water cooling, it might do more harm than help. So, as my final decision, water cooling is an amazing purchase if you can handle the price range and are willing to do the research.